Welcome to the Sapphire Sessions podcast, where we talk about all things luxury, lifestyle, life as woman, and so much more. Chatting with guests, friends, and other pretty cool people. Tune in and come hang out with us for a bit. And now, your host of Sapphire Sessions, Miss Nico Sapphire.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sapphire Sessions. I'm so happy to be here with you guys. And today I'm joined by one of my favorite people and creator of the Regal Discourse podcast, and who also voiced the script I wrote for the Sapphire Sessions intro and outro, Ms. Anna Norwalt. How you doing today, Anna?
I'm well. It's good to be on the show finally. We've been talking about it for a while now.
I know. My gosh. Well, I'm so glad to have you here. So for this episode, I wanted to talk a bit about the Oscars. We recently just had this year's on March 12th, get into some music talk and a special little performance by yours truly at the end of the session. So y'all better listen all the way through so you don't miss it. So we just passed through this year's awards season, which included the 95th Academy Awards ceremony. Now lots went on this year, lots of great films and nominees, but what I wanted to focus on the most was, of course, the category for Best Actor that Brendan Fraser took home for The Whale. However, I thought Austin Butler, who played Elvis, should have taken home the award. So we'll get into that in a bit. But first off, to start off, I wanted to get your thoughts, Anna, on the Oscars this year, if you had any thoughts about it, any favorites or any films, nominees in general that you liked.
I will say I am a child, and I pretty much only watch animated films.
That's okay.
So
they got a whole category for that.
The only thing that interested me was the animated film section, and I really enjoyed Puss in Boots, and I know a lot of people have also really enjoyed it because of the animation style was incredible.
Yeah.
And it did not win.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
To be fair, I heard that the Pinocchio movie was very good, and so I need to watch it. So I can't really comment on whether or not it was deserved, but I was a little butthurt about it when I saw that they didn't win.
So Pinocchio won.
Pinocchio,
gotcha.
Yeah, Pinocchio won and not Puss in Boots, and I feel like that they kind of got gypped. But I shouldn't comment. I have not seen Pinocchio, so it might be a really good movie.
Okay.
Apparently it was.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Any other favorites or anything else?
I think that's the one that I actually know the most about. Everything else was kind of like, oh yeah, I heard about this film and I really wanted to see it, and then I never did. Right. So how about you? What were besides, because I know you love Elvis. Besides Elvis, what was one film that you were really loving?
Okay, I don't know if I had any that, of course, that I loved as much as Elvis, but it was cool, and something that I was talking to my mom about. I think it's one of the first times they brought some more of the Marvel stuff into the awards ceremony, because they never had, these bigger like blockbuster movies. They never got nominated, so I think that's been really cool. My mom was super excited about that too. I think Black Panther was the one that was in there. So she had watched that. I didn't watch that yet, but we watched some of the Marvel ones together as well. So I thought that was pretty cool to kind of have that get introduced this year. A lot of different things. What else? Ooh, I know Top Gun was huge. I didn't see it. Okay,
not a Top Gun kind of gal?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think it won either, but I know it got nominated. I think it was a big thing that it got nominated this year too. Okay. So that was one. Yeah. I don't remember what else. I think Avatar 2 was one of them. I didn't watch that either. So a lot of different things.
A lot of films for us to watch, apparently.
I guess so.
Apparently really good films that we just didn't watch this year.
Yeah, I mean, it happens.
There's always so
happens
many.
To the best of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, it's hard. I have some friends that are so, they've seen like everything. But they're like the real film nerds, sort of.
I was going to say, there are people that are like, how have you not seen this? I'm like, how do you have time to see everything that's come out? I try, and I don't really try.
Yeah. That's okay.
It's okay. We try our best.
Yeah. I mean, personally for me too, I don't watch a lot of movies all the time. I mean, because I watch Netflix all the time, where I got like my favorite series. That's kind of my way to unwind, when I get home and in my free time and stuff. So I think only when there's something I really want to see, something really good, then I'll go and check it out, like in the theater. Right, or something.
So, I mean, why pay theater prices? Unless you have, like, a group of friends that are all going out or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I've never gone to the theater and been like, I'm going to go alone because I just want to watch this movie. Like, that's never... I don't think I've ever been to a theater alone.
Some people do that, though.
Which, rock on for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I am just not one of those people.
Yeah, I think every time I've gone with at least one other person to the theater.
I just drag my dad. He loves the theater, and so I'll be like, "Oh, you want to go see this movie?" And he loves kids' films too, so we'll just go together and be the two grown adults watching a kids' film together.
Hey, at least you got somebody with you,
right?
To go
exactly.
with you.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right?
Okay, I see where you get it from now. Oh gosh, that's funny. Alrighty, so what I wanted to start off with too, also relating to the Oscars, is to talk about essentially how they're being done today.
Right.
So I think most would think, right, whoever has truly done the best performance would get the award.
Right.
However, I think we are kind of seeing sort of a shift. I don't know. I think the question to pose here, like, are there other reasons now that are influencing voting, right? And so it was interesting. So a little fun story here. I had a friend, it was a neighbor of my grandparents, who was actually a member of the Academy. So he actually was part of the voting.
Fancy.
And he had voted for, it was a while back, for Catherine Zeta-Jones for Chicago.
Okay,
And he had told them, they asked why he voted, and he had said just because he wanted to see more musicals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, was that for like Best Actress?
I think it was Best Supporting Actress.
Okay,
I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I mean, she certainly could have been,
right?
But I don't know. That was like what he had told my grandparents at the time. So I don't know, like the kind of reasoning behind it, if it was just to encourage more musicals, to kind of see more of that,
right?
So, but I don't know if compared to the other nominees. I mean, who knows?
It almost sounds like a little bit of like a strategic like chess game where they're like, oh, well, I want to see more of this person, or I want to see more of this style of film. It's like a little political chess game of film.
Right. Yeah,
if
almost.
I may. But, I don't know. You would assume that it would be based off of whoever just did the best, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, because I think, and that's exactly what it is. While it is a small group, right, who has the final say, just the people who are voting, the exec members. But I mean, shouldn't it be based on who actually did the best?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then it goes back to, you were saying, bigger blockbuster movies aren't necessarily getting nominated.
Yeah.
And, are those people less deserving of the nomination just because it was a big blockbuster film?
Right.
And they want to seem like, oh, well, I picked a fancy film that you hadn't heard of. So, I don't know. It does bring into question a lot of like, well, why did this person win? Or why was this film nominated and not other, multi-billion dollar...
Sure.
Like, I don't know, just interesting questions that come to mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. And so kind of relating that, back to the award for Best Actor this year, right? So I think, so there was several nominees, right? But I think everybody kind of knew it was between Brendan Fraser for The Whale and Austin Butler for Elvis. And I think, what I've heard too, Brendan's very well liked and things like that. Yeah, and I think this kind of seemed like it was his comeback, right? Because what I had heard too, he wasn't getting as many opportunities lately, I think, and things like that, and things kind of slowed down a little bit for him lately. And so I don't know. And, of course, he ended up taking the award home. But I think with Austin, I mean, of course, I have my personal bias being an Elvis super fan over here.
Wearing Elvis's face on your shirt.
Yes,
today.
I mean, I had to rep today. But, I mean, he was and Austin Butler in the movie was just phenomenal. I mean, his transformation into Elvis, like he completely embodied him. He had so many different stages in his life, right? And, he always talks about it in all the interviews, you kind of see him talking about the years of dedication to really like turn into him. Wow. And I know there's kind of, everybody talks about his voice and how he still kind of has the accent a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're doing it for 3 years, you kind of, embodying somebody else and learning all their little mannerisms and just kind of who they really are and understanding who the person is too, behind his kind of his
the facade almost.
Behind the performer of Elvis and things like that, and just his music, right? And because I think some people might say like he wasn't just another impersonator. I know there's many. I've seen a couple in my life, seen a couple tribute things here and there, but I mean you can't compare that. You can't say Austin Butler was just another impersonator. I mean, those are the ones that haven't watched the movie. probably, you know, and so, but yeah, and so I know he was recognized, you know, Golden Globes, he won that, and the BAFTAs, I believe, that's like the British Oscars.
Okay.
But you know, of course, I still think he deserved the Oscar after all that, and I think it kind of relating back, you know, to the reasoning behind why people voted for Brendan. I mean, was it to kind of give him another chance, or you know, because things had slowed down in his career, maybe? But I mean, I don't know, or because you know, in my opinion, with Austin, or did he really perform better than Austin? That's what I'm trying
Have
to
you
get at.
seen his performance like at all in trailers or any sort of?
Brendan's?
Yeah.
I did see some trailers.
Okay.
For it. I think another thing too, which was interesting, I was hearing about, for some reason, the Academy, they seem to like films where the actors and stuff like that, actresses, tend to use a lot of prosthetics. And, you know, because it was this whole thing where he had this huge kind of like fat suit almost, but, you know, using all the prosthetics and everything. And so that was essentially the thing, you know, in the movie. And so the Academy seems to, you know, cater to liking those and things like that.
Interesting.
But it is interesting because, you know, I mean, you could say he just had that, but I feel like, again, with Austin, he really, you know, all this time committed and dedicated to learning how to be Elvis, you know. And
I
think
said it was 3 years.
Yeah,
he actually took like 3 years
That's
before the shooting of the film, or 3 years like of shooting the actual film. Sorry, I don't know the timeline.
Yes, I think there was some time before where he was kind of in the training and coaching and, you know, learning with the accent and the moves and everything, and then just kind of continued during the film, during shooting and stuff.
Dang. Okay, so it was like a total of like pre-shooting the actual film till end of film. It was like almost 3 years.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a long time to practice for one role.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, I think, with some of that. And I think the thing is, like, how could he have stood out compared to these other impersonators, right? And I think he did. I think he did. That's, I mean, I don't know how else he could have done that with, you know, all the coaching and things like that. I mean, that was the way to do it because he was absolutely incredible, I think, in the movie, being him. And so... so I wanted to ask you as well, what if you had any thoughts on Austin's portrayal in the film, or some of the clips you saw of the Elvis movie? Yeah.
Well, so I for people listening, I am not as I love Elvis, but I'm not like as well educated about him.
Sure.
So for me, I was watching it and I was like, oh yeah, that looks like. That looks like Elvis, I guess. And like he's doing things like Elvis would do, and it sounds like it's a good time. So I don't know. I enjoyed watching his performances. I thought it was really fun, and it was kind of funny to see. You know, you always hear, especially. I don't know, for somebody like me who's not so connected to it, I always hear about how women reacted to his music.
Oh my gosh.
So to watch women react, and I was like, oh wow, that's like a lot.
Yeah, that was a huge thing. Yeah.
I actually, so because I'm less educated on his performance way back when.
Yes.
I was curious to hear your perspective on what you think is like what he did really well.
Yeah.
In not mimicking, but like in mirroring Elvis versus what he did differently from Elvis.
Oh, gosh, that's such a good question. So, you know, it's interesting. I see a lot, since it came out, of course, a lot of social media stuff and kind of some accounts and people put like a clip from Elvis actually back then doing a performance, and then Austin doing one of the same performances.
Oh my gosh,
that he did,
I love
those. And it's, I mean, it's the coolest thing. It's so fun to watch that, right? And I mean, it was cool. I think one thing that I can always remember when, so I went to go see it with my mom, of course, one of my best friends, Kayla, who's also almost just as much, you know, as an Elvis fan as me. She's my main kind of, you know, because not many people, right? I'm like, so she's kind of one of my Elvis buddies here. And so with three of us, we went to the theater to go see that together back in, what was it? Sometime in the summer is when it came out, I think in June. And I just remember when it would come to his bigger, like the shows and the music performances and stuff, like it felt like we were there during that time and watching Elvis perform. I mean, it was incredible. I know they kind of, with the editing, you know, they had done like mixed Austin's voice and Elvis's for some. He did some on his own though. So there was a couple, and I think they would mention in some of the interviews, like Austin did several of younger Elvis's songs, right? So he kind of did that fully. And then I think there were some, I think maybe when he was a bit older, they had like mixed their voices together a little bit.
Wow.
And I mean, when I would listen to some of the songs, because they had posted the whole kind of like album on Spotify and from the soundtrack from the movie, which was awesome, and there was all these cool remixes too. And I would listen kind of like back to back or something, or I'd be in the car too with my mom, and I would play one, and then she's like, "Wait, is that Austin or Elvis?"
Wow.
And yeah.
And to get a voice, I mean, he's the king of rock and roll, right? That was his title, like his unofficial title.
Right.
To be able to mimic somebody that well.
Yeah.
That, I mean, dude, the pressure is on. Like,
I know.
Yeah. No pressure, just like go and be the king of rock and roll and like do it well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was incredible. And I know, he had met the family too and things like that. So he definitely, I remember some of the clips too in some of his interviews. He was feeling it, of course. I mean, this is huge, huge role, and he wants to do it right. You know what I mean? So it was incredible just kind of hearing the songs and everything and back to back. Because I think too, like when you look at Austin, because I had actually watched him. It was so funny. He was in a couple seasons of the Carrie Diaries. I don't know if you ever
heard I never watched them, but I heard of them.
It was kind of a spin-off sort of Sex and the City, and they only had a couple seasons, and then they canceled it. But I remember Austin Butler, this is probably one of the first times I'd seen him, and he was in that show. He was one of the main characters. And I mean, he was so much younger then too, and it was crazy. So you look at him then, like you might not think or be able to picture him being Elvis, right, at all these stages in his life. But I think with the makeup, there wasn't too much, kind of fake stuff or the prosthetics until Elvis when he was older, right, before he passed and things like that. But other than that, it was like it just kind of, his face kind of worked with all the stuff, and then the hair dye, and then the outfits, and then just him kind of, performing as him, like it just sort of fit. You know what I mean?
So interesting. It's crazy how like just the way that you hold yourself and like a change of hair color and outfit can it could be a different person.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's really, I mean, I couldn't imagine turning into, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I do my Elvis impressions every now and then. I do my little dances when I'm playing the guitar. But I'm like, I don't know. Maybe
get one of those later.
Maybe I only do it for certain people. So
okay.
For the special one sometimes. So anyways, but I mean, I think I'm pretty good sometimes. But don't compare me to Austin Butler over here.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
But I mean, you just you look at that. I mean, it's incredible. Like I don't know if people really realize how much that took. And so I think, I don't know if that was something people really considered or thought about when voting for the Best Actor award.
I would be curious. So. I know we wouldn't ever get this insight, but I would be curious to hear why they voted for each person or each film.
And I don't know if that's really something that kind of gets out to the public. It was an interesting story, like I'd mentioned, because it was one of the voters, and he had passed away a good amount of time ago. And he just happened to be a neighbor of my grandparents and a friend, and that's, he had told them that, and so it's interesting to kind of hear a story like that and then see how they vote for things today, and of course everybody, has kind of different opinions, and some people were really happy, of course, that Brendan won, and then there's, the other side with kind of my fellow Elvis fans, my people, if you will, that really thought he should have won, and I know he's younger, and I'm sure probably has more time in his career, but this was his such a huge thing, and now it's just fantastic. He's getting all these other roles, and I think it's kind of, because I don't know if a lot of people really knew who he was too much before. He was in things every now and then, and I think what a lot of people kind of talk about what he was from. He was in a bunch of little Disney stuff when he was really young. Yeah, and so he's like a child actor. He started when he was really young, and then kind of got into some other things. But this was his really huge thing. And also, I remember he was going up against, I think Harry Styles had auditioned for Elvis as well.
Oh my gosh!
And there was some others. But I think what people were saying with that, which was interesting, was Harry Styles is so well known, and I think people would kind of have been distracted almost that it was Harry playing him, instead of like with Austin. I think he was perfect for the role. Yeah, and I think it worked. Like, he didn't have as much that was well known beforehand, before Elvis. And so I think because this was such a huge opportunity for him and really, I think, made his name even more now, it's all the more reason why I think he should have won. So
I just looked up Austin Butler on Disney Channel.
Oh my gosh,
and
Anna.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, so man showed up on Hannah Montana, Wizards of Waverly Place, Jonas, Zoe 101, and iCarly.
Yeah.
And he was on Sharpay's adventure movie.
Yes. Okay. Right.
So this man really was. We were raised with this man.
Yeah.
Is what I'm seeing.
It's crazy. I don't even remember that much, like seeing him in that stuff.
I feel like now looking at some of the images, I go, oh, that's the same person.
Yeah,
like he doesn't look, like you were saying, he literally doesn't look anything like Elvis until he looks like Elvis.
Yeah. Of course he's older and now,
puberty does.
Right.
But it's really, that's so cool. I feel like that makes it, I don't know, like a deeper connection for me personally, just to see.
Absolutely. It was so funny. I remember,
far he's come.
Yeah, sometimes also on social media, some clips that people would kind of put together, and it was his voice. He was doing an interview when he was like, doing one of these shows, let's say when he was really young, and then they would fast forward to now, and he's doing this stuff. I'm like, you can't really compare. He's just got older, but like still, it's so funny.
It's always weird with child actors and being like, people will compare them to their earlier stuff, and it's like, well, they were literally like children or teenagers, so they've changed significantly.
Because I think that's where there's a whole thing, and people kind of, I feel like I've almost turned it into a negative thing, which is kind of weird. The fact that he still sort of sounds like him, and I'm like, I mean, sure, like of course that can happen, but I mean it's cool too. You know, I don't know why people are kind of like almost it's like slander almost, and they're using that to like diss him, kind of like, oh, he still sound. I don't know why he's still doing the Elvis accent, all these things, But of course too, and then they'll show the clips, and like of course it's naturally too, his voice got deeper and all these things,
right?
And so it just kind of fit. But again, what he would always say in his interviews, for doing it for all these years, sure, he's going to take some stuff with him that kind of still is within him almost from all the coaching and training and things like that.
Okay, so what I've noticed is there will always be at least one person in everybody's life that they know like went to some random place on, spring break, or they went there for study abroad or whatever, and they come back with an accent, and people are like, oh yeah, why do you have an accent? That sounds so dumb. And sometimes it sticks with people. Like my mom has a friend who went somewhere in the South and came back and has never lost the Southern accent. And like I feel like if you can do that over a week in spring break, you could definitely do that over 3 years of practicing to perfect this accent. Like I don't blame the man. I would probably stick with the accent too.
Sure.
It sounds good
thing.
too.
Yeah,
it's not like it sounds bad.
Yeah, no, that's a great like comparison, and it's really interesting how that can. I think it also is like different time frames for everybody too. Yeah, it's interesting when you see that happen. So. But I think so. Aside from my personal bias as well, I think he did an incredible job in the film. So kind of transitioning a little bit into more music stuff, I want to kind of talk about why also Elvis is such a favorite of mine. So personally for me, as a musician, I think Elvis really. So I had been studying piano since I was little for a long time, and then only got into guitar a few years ago actually. Oh. But I think Elvis, once I kind of discovered, he had this one performance my mom had actually introduced me to. It was incredible, and it was his 68th comeback show. It's when he's in the whole black leather suit and everything, and it was such it was so much more of an unplugged sort of informal kind of performance, and he did a lot of his famous songs that a lot of people know, but it was just so different and really bluesy and like everything. And I kind of I had learned sort of from that's what I like, and I love the blues and that kind of style, and that's what I wanted to learn, and I wanted to play that on guitar and things like that. And so ever since then, he's been a huge inspiration to me as a musician, especially with the blues and things like that.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say that blues is your favorite genre of music?
I think if anybody has ever asked me, I think I would usually say that. Yeah, of course, I have all different kinds, but I think, to listen to and to play, I would say. I love, take a lot of pride in my very curated Spotify playlist. So I have ones, for all different occasions. I love other stuff too, and it kind of depends on the mood I'm in. I'm not always in the mood, right? But I love, something about blues. I love it. I feel like it's so me too, I think with piano too. I started more with like jazz kind of stuff like that, and Sinatra was a big inspiration for that. But I think Elvis, his like the combination, he took gospel and country and rock and things like that, and created the blues with all of that. So I love it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, So I wanted to ask you as well. What do you think of his sort of music style and things like that, Elvis in general?
I mean, I think it was a very huge turning point in terms of like music styles and stuff. And as somebody who would consider themselves an old soul,
right?
You said Sinatra, and I was like, oh,
yes,
that man. I've been listening to him like nonstop for the last like 24 hours.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have a deep appreciation for people in that time frame because their music just, it just feels like being home for me because like that's just like what I grew up with. So when I hear Elvis, I think of my aunt because she really loves Elvis.
It's always
but
the
I also,
aunt or the grandma,
right?
It's so funny.
Well, what's funny is that she's like my aunt and my grandma. She's 20 years older than my dad.
Okay,
that's a whole other podcast. But she's basically, she acts like our grandma.
Tune in,
but she's technically my aunt, and she's like obsessed with Elvis, and I love her, and I don't know. Every time I hear his music, it just reminds me of like family gatherings, and my uncle plays guitar, so sometimes he'll play Elvis, and
that's so
it's just, I don't know, it just brings back good times. It's never awesome. Like I'll skip this one, I don't know.
Yeah, I think also because for my, my parents too, in their generation, like they always loved blues too, and so it's fun, when I'm in the car with them too and stuff, and I play Elvis, like they enjoy it too. It's not something that they're kind of like, oh, what is this, Right. But so because like I said too, my mom was the one who kind of got me into him and everything, and some of his songs and stuff, and so I think from that, I always think about that. I think because that's kind of, I guess, the music I grew up on a little bit too, if you will, because they would always listen to the blues and the rock stuff too, and all of that, kind of like the 80s rock and things like that. So I don't know. I always have known that. And then I started to love it even more when I got more into playing music too, and I was sort of finding my style with music and composing and things like that. But so crazy. I definitely an old soul, I think, when it comes to that and some other things as well. But I don't know. It's power of music, man.
Yeah, super good. And I mean, you are such a talented musician from what I've heard of you. So I cannot believe that you've only been playing for a couple years.
Well, yeah, so like I said, piano. Thank you. With piano, I kind of I had more formal training with that, so I took lessons when I was little, and then it was really kind of like up until high school. We were getting into high school, and it was when I finally kind of found my genre with piano too, and that's when I started writing music on my own with piano and things like that, and kind of started with the jazz, and now I do a little bit more blues too.
Right.
But and then I was so funny actually. So I had a friend who had gave me their old ukulele a while back, like years and years ago, also sometime in high school, and it was funny. I had started to try and convert these guitar songs that I really liked, and I would try and find ukulele versions. And I was like, all right, I just got to get a guitar. So it was for, I think my 17th birthday was when I got the electric one. I'm 21 now.
Wow.
So
thank you for that.
Yes.
For the people that don't know.
Yes. So that's when I started. So I started with the electric, and I loved it. And then I had gotten acoustic, I think a little over a year ago. Kind of wanted to, finally get that in different style. And, it's actually, I named it Elvis.
Stop.
So
that's amazing.
Anyways,
I love
forgot
that.
to mention that. Yeah. So
she might like him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's kind of when. And so with guitar too, I learned mainly on my own through YouTube and things like that. So I'm a little more self-taught. I never really had formal lessons on guitar or anything, but I knew I wanted to take that up too at some point. And
it
get
was
into
worth
that
it.
well.
You worked your butt off, I presume, because it shows you're very, very talented.
And, thank you so much.
So I'm excited to hear you play.
Oh yeah, yeah. But is there any real quick before we get into that? Any other music you kind of like or?
Oh man, I feel like my music taste is very sporadic. Like it depends on the day. It'll be a musical one day. It'll be 50s classics. It'll be I'm Christian, so I listen to worship like literally every day, but so I'd say that's my most played.
Get the gospel in there.
I will say I don't listen to gospel music that often because I don't know. I'm a camp counselor, man, and like the stuff that's like you would listen to camp and everybody's in a mosh pit and you're like he picks me up, like Anna. that's what I listen to because it's like like if there's not some sort of dancing going on, which I know is actually largely driven from gospel music because that's so much movement.
They show that in the movie a little bit too. Yeah.
So total respect for it. That's not something that I listen to all the time. But yeah, I would say it is kind of funny to think. I didn't even think about the fact that he started off with gospel music, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was really inspired, in the Black community kind of stuff, and that's almost became like I think he felt like that was his people, and so he was surrounded by all that kind of music, and so he kind of brought that more to the mainstream public, and things like that a little bit.
So cool.
It's incredible. Yeah. So I think it's awesome. I love that the movie has, brought newer fans and kind of a newer audience, a little bit younger people too, all different ages, which is so awesome. To Elvis, and now everybody can see, for me, what the hype has been all about, and why I love him so much. So it's kind of cool. I can hopefully find some new Elvis fans and friends and things like that. But so I think we will transition now into our ending. So in honor of Elvis, as I wear my Elvis shirt and a little TCB lightning bolt necklace, I actually brought my acoustic guitar today for you all to play a little something. So while the film didn't win this year's Oscars, he will forever be the king in my eyes. So here's one of the first songs I actually ever learned on the guitar. It's Baby What You Want Me to Do by Elvis.
It was so good.
Oh, thank you, Anna.
What a beautiful tribute.
That's so sweet. Thank you. I should say thank you very much. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. I wanted to thank all of you here today. I think we will wrap up there. Good way to end on. Good note to end on. But I wanted to thank you again, Anna, for joining me on another Sapphire Sessions. So happy you could finally come on.
Oh, me too.
And for those of you listening, don't forget to check out Miss Anna Norwalt on Regal Discourse. Any last comments, Anna?
No, rock on.
Awesome. You heard it here. All right, there you have it, you guys. We will see you in the next episode.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Sapphire Sessions podcast, a production brought to you by the CLU podcasting class. If you have any ideas of more things you'd like to hear Nico talk about or people you'd like her to bring on, be sure to check out our Instagram page at nico.sapphire and feel free to reach out. Anything is welcome. We'll see you next time.